Prater and his people move fast. Can't say I didn't see this coming. That's just how it happens when you play with Prater. So let's just jump right into this episode called Cat and Mouse. So let's start off by talking about how death comes for us all, according to Dexter. And he's talking to Blessing, who's not his normal exuberant self, because Prudence done passed. And he told Dexter, we'd be honored if you stopped by for her wake. It's funny because Dexter asked Harrison for fashion advice for a wake, because he was going to rock this black hoodie like it was no problem. So Harrison showed up with a suit jacket for Dexter, and he's also dressed to come to the wake as well. And Dexter was like, oh, you don't have to come to this. And Harrison is there for support. He told Dexter, funerals are hard when you're alone. And that brought back memories of Hannah. Harrison said he had never felt more alone than when she passed. And Dexter said, I'm sorry you had to go through that alone. It's cool to kind of watch them work through their stuff in real time. He and Harrison are still working through getting to know each other, but they're helping each other get ready. He's showing Harrison how to tie the tie based on how Harry taught him. The rabbit got in the hole safe and sound, didn't he? And he's still trying to build Harrison up. So he made sure he said some encouraging words. He said, both of your mothers would be proud. He's sort of providing a layer of safety and comfort for Harrison. Because Harrison said, when I lost you the second time, it just did a number on me. And that's when Dexter told him, I'm not going anywhere again. I promise. Now, I don't think this is a promise that Dexter can actually keep, given his dark passenger. His urges bring unnecessary drama and trauma to people that he loves. So when Dexter and Harrison are walking up to Blessing's door, he's trying to coach Harrison on what a funeral is like. And Harrison was like, I've been to funerals, bro. And he was like, brace yourself for a lot of sadness. And I was like, oh, Dexter don't know what he's about to walk into. I mean, he said the last funeral he had been to was Rita's, but I know he had never been to a funeral like this one before. Blessing's family has actually been a true blessing to Dexter because they just really embrace him and show him a lot of love. And he's only known them for 2 weeks. And Harrison was like, you've known them for 2 weeks? And I've been here for months and I only know 3 people. They embraced Harrison as well. They was like, get on up in here. So while Dexter's at the wake, Charlie pulls up to Red's house. All the signs of being in the wind were there. The mailbox was full. All the food on the counter and in the sink was molded. So Charlie called Prater and said, hey, Red's MIA too. Meanwhile, back at the wake, it was time for cats. Had me nervous for a second. I was like, I hope they don't do anything theatrical. But then it just turned out that Prudence had a lot of cat figurines and people had to pick one and then talk about what she meant to them. I was like, oh, that's cool. My mom used to collect elephants. So I took a small figurine as a keepsake. When it was Dexter's turn, he had to pick up the biggest cat he could find. And his speech was short and sweet, but the words that he used had people kind of teary-eyed. And it was also kind of comical because he pretended like he was crying or wiping away tears. And I was like, bruh, not you trying to put on an act real quick. Poor brother Blessing. He was beside himself. He couldn't get through his whole speech. And then Dexter had to step outside because he got a phone call from Prater. Prater said, hey, I'm outside your house. You decent? Dexter was like, I'm not at home. And Prater said, I can wait. When are you coming back? And Dexter said, Prater, never, ever. Ever. Y'all blew the cover for my apartment and my job, so I left both. Y'all know how I love my anonymity. And Prater's response to hearing all of this was kind of telling. He gathered himself enough, though, so he could fire back and say, I wouldn't expect anything less. And he said, I was stopping by to give you a ride, but I guess you know how to find the place. Meet at my spot ASAP. So we're watching Harrison walking around. He's trying to figure things out. When he was at Blessing's place, Joy was asking him if he was in school or anything or what he does for a living. And he was like, I don't really know what I want to do. He's considering maybe college or hospitality. But he stops over at this NYU interest table and he looks at that brochure and can tell that price is not pricing for him. Toss that brochure right in the trash. We poors don't have the funds for that, okay? So on his way he went. Now back at the precinct, we have Detectives Wallace and Oliva talking to Mia's victim. He told them quite a bit of information. He said what happened, how Mia approached him, and how he was just like, I was so surprised. I'm not the ideal ladies man if you can't tell. And Detective Wallace was like, so none of this seemed off to you? I was like, oh, you cold as hell, girl. And he was like, well, it just all went so fast. And then they just kept talking and he started sharing the right information. He said, I was going to be her first kill in New York. I didn't come on to her. I wasn't making any advances. I just wanted to talk to her, but she initiated everything. And once they were done talking to him, they went back and forth on the details of that conversation. And Detective Wallace was like, maybe she was set up. Now, she didn't say it explicitly, but she was at least open to exploring what she heard from the witness. Detective Oliva was not, though. He was downplaying Lil Buddy. And for some reason, he was hell-bent on making sure that those charges stuck to Mia. And it kind of pissed her off. And it's something about the timing of Angel. Whenever they're getting coffee, he just pops up. He's like, detectives, let's talk. And when they were in the room, Angel said, I don't think that Lady Vengeance did this. I think she was set up. And he said just enough to pique Detective Wallace's interest. He showed her the picture of Dexter, said who he thought he was. He said, I think he's the Bay Harbor Butcher. And he told her, I don't think that Dexter committed this crime. I think his son Harrison, who works at the hotel, committed this crime. And Dexter was the one that taught him this method. And Detective Wallace was like, oh, I know about some Harrison now. And for a second there, he was actually throwing them off. They were like, we don't quite follow where your story is going. And Detective Oliva was like, how would he even find Mia? Angel said, that's the Bay Harbor Butcher's MO. He hunts serial killers. And then Detective Wallace says, what is it that you want here? And Angel says, I just want to tag along when you do your interview of Mia. I want to be able to show her this picture of Dexter and see if she knows him. So over at the Prater estate, the guys are rattled. Lowell is in the wind. Mia's locked up. They're worried about what's coming next. And even through all of this, the Gemini killer finds a way to make himself more of a snob. This man is like, I'm at the tippity top of the FBI most wanted list. Mia can trade on my notoriety. There have been 4 books written about me, and there's a film adaptation on the way. So extreme measures must be taken. You see what happened when you let girls play? But what he didn't know is that Doogie Howes already took the first L. And Dexter was like, as I think to myself, I can't wait to get him up out of here. And Prater said, y'all do know that I have numerous connections within law enforcement, including the FBI. And one of them has already revealed themselves. I'll get to that in a little bit. And one last thing about that scene. It was hilarious when Prater was like, well, you know what? To smooth things out, we just need to give y'all a little bit of extra cash. He didn't get to utter the words fast enough before Rapunzel with the bundles popped out of his seat. Like a human squirrel, grabbed his share of the cash, stuffed it in his fanny pack like he was hiding acorns. So the next scene, we see Charlie walking into this room where people are gambling, and she sits down at a table with a guy who clearly is probably not good with money. He just lost. She hands him a stack of money inside of an envelope and says, hey friend, I need you. We didn't hear what she needed him to do, but we could only guess maybe 2 things, either find Lowell or take out Mia. So after the meeting at Prater's house, Dexter is following a Gemini killer and he follows him into a bookstore. Now, we're out in the open, so Dexter, I don't even know why you're doing this in the daylight. So he walks up to the 2nd floor and sees Gemini putting a bookmark in one of the books in the crime section. And when Gemini leaves, Dexter walks over there to see what it is. He sees that there was a note left in there that says 8 p.m. And he was like, I'm wondering who this is to, but they're not going to get it because guess what? I'm finna put this in my pocket. And what's so interesting to me is that Dexter felt like the Gemini killer was full of himself, but Dexter is also pretty arrogant. Do we need to talk about the fact that you were upset with Red for his name being Dark Passenger? And he also sees himself as superior to these other serial killers because he abides by the code that Harry gave him. But the thing is, everybody has some kind of origin story as to why they got to this point. But not everyone had Harry for a father. So some of them had to figure it out on their own. So let's talk about being in this bookstore. You could have just taken this information that the Gemini killer left and then closed the book and went about your way. But instead, you had to find yourself in that same book that he was in. And you saw that picture of Sergeant Dokes, which probably burns you up a little bit too, because he's getting credit for your work. But you probably should have been a bit more careful, because while you were going down memory lane about who you are in this book, somebody was watching you. And that someone knocked the book on the ground and startled Dexter, so he closed the book and left. And his carelessness is what brought darkness into Dexter's home. It was clear that once he went upstairs with that ice in Blessing's house, that when he got home, the Gemini killer would be sitting in there. And he most certainly was. And he asked, why did you take my note? And Dex, being good at lying, was like, honestly, I'm going to just come out and say it. I'm a fan. He played on that arrogance of Gemini, because Gemini was like, I should have anticipated this. And then he started shading Red. He was like, the beheadings are just so primitive. I suspected my influence on your work. And I'm like, Dexter, if you don't get him, I will. Because he just kept going on and on. He was like, I'm the smartest person in every room. And those gatherings at Prater's, that was just a way to get to me. And then Dexter said, hey, I have a question. Who was that note for? And Gemini said, me. And it all made sense at the end of the episode. And while questioning him, Dexter was making a gin and tonic. But you know, he had to spike that little G&T that he was going to give Gemini. And Gemini just kept doing his song. He was like, I am number one at everything. And Dexter brought over those drinks and said, for now. Gemini thought he was making a good move. He swapped out the drinks. And he waited on Dexter to drink first. But Dexter anticipated that move and gave him the correct drink. And the face right here said,
success.
Knocked him right out. And he was like, who's number one now? So Dexter set up a kill floor, I guess, down in his apartment to take out Gemini. He didn't even take the duct tape off the man's mouth because he didn't want to hear it anymore. But I was hoping he was going to tell him, hey, I'm the Bay Harbor Butcher, to see how he responded, because his mumbles still sounded like he was saying Red. He could have at least told that man he was chapter 10 in the book. Dexter got straight to it with Gemini. He just got his blood slide and then put one in the chest. Now, part of me was already asking, why are you doing this downstairs while these people are up here celebrating a life of prudence? Somebody could come down knocking at any time. And literally, that's when Blessing showed up downstairs to see if he could talk to Dexter. And Dexter pulled that knife out pretty fast. It threw some blood up in the air, so I'm hoping he's looking up when it's time for cleanup. So he wrapped Gemini up real quick in the plastic and threw him in the tub. And when he got in the house, I said, I'm betting he's going to probably have to go to the bathroom, but he's not going to find the body. I don't think the writers are trying to set up the story for that. Now, Blessing just wanted to come down and say, hey, I apologize for how I shouted earlier. He was dealing with a lot. Today was very stressful for him. He lost this woman that was a rock in his life, pretty much his North Star, sort of like Harry was for Dexter. They just dealt with the darkness differently. Blessing said that Prudence saved him, and she said, never ever let the darkness into your home. Leave it elsewhere. She also told him to leave the past in the past and move forward with your second chance at life. And Dexter was thinking to himself, I got to keep this darkness from Harrison. And he definitely does, because Harrison is feeling guilty for even thinking about forking Elsa's landlord in the eye. And Dexter is doing a pretty good job of calming him down this time around. He said, you are just like your Aunt Deb, who had a hot temper, but she also had a strong sense of right and wrong. She made some mistakes, but that didn't stop her from doing good or trying to help others. Told Harrison, you're not a monster. You're human. He was pulling out his whole arsenal for this conversation. He used convos that he was having with Blessing's family for this one. So Dexter receives a call from Charlie, and she says, hey, Prater has a surprise for you. And Dexter was like, what kind of surprise? And she said, the kind of surprise that's a surprise, bruh. Just be over at the pier at this time. Bring your trophies and your tools. So while Dexter's getting prepared for that, Detectives Wallace, Oliva, and Batista get to the facility where Mia's being held. They're about to go interview her, and then all of a sudden the alarm goes off. And it's crazy because as soon as they got there, Mia pulls an Epstein. The officer checks her pulse and says, she's gone, Warden. And then the officer turns around and says, I'm sorry. Happens to be our good old gambling buddy. How convenient. So now we really know what the money was for. Angel was just devastated. So on the way to meet Prater, Dexter was listening to the radio and he heard about Mia's death, which gave him pause and made him wonder if she did it or if she had some assistance. Did he take Gareth's advice? I doubt he took advice from that man. Literally last episode, Charlie told her, your stay would be comfortable and quick. He wasn't going to provide her legal counsel because he doesn't want to be attached to her. So the quick was definite. The comfort part was in question because I'm not sure about a bed sheet being comfortable around my neck. So Dexter pulls up to the helipad and he sees Prater and Charlie waiting. And Rapunzel pops up out of nowhere. He is pumped for this trip. And Dex starts thinking to himself, the sudden loss of so many people in our group kind of looks sus, and I'm probably the prime suspect right now. And what I say to that is, so that doesn't even really matter at this point. So everybody's on the helicopter. The only person they're waiting for is Gareth. And to Dexter's surprise, he pulls up. Then Dexter was like, how did I not see this coming? The Gemini killers. Twins?
Twins.
Yeah, double homicide.
Well, it's going to be interesting because Dexter going to have to take out right Twix now. And that's where the episode ended. I have some takeaways here. One, Dexter must have signed a pact with the dark side because he's always getting away with something. He's the luckiest person ever. The watch wasn't going to hold up, but your picture being shown to Mia would have sank your battleship for real. So she had to go. And you know why she really had to go? Because Prater knows who Dexter is for sure now. You know who told him? Angel. It was by accident because he talked to Detective Oliva and Wallace. And I put money on it that Detective Oliva is on Prater's payroll. And in order to keep the Bay Harbor Butcher out, you have to make sure that Mia goes away. I'll probably talk about this at length in a different video, but I just wanted to put that out there. Another thing I noticed is that this story is shaping up for Angel to be a lone wolf death like the other officers in Miami Metro. It's a very consistent Dexter storyline. Whenever the officer is by themselves, they get taken out. Another consistent thing that happens in the Dexter storyline is whenever he gets close to somebody, something bad happens to him. Now, I could see something happening to Blessing or his family. I would hope not. But for some reason, I feel like it has to be somebody very close to Dexter. And he's at risk because Dexter's dealing with all these dangerous people right now. Harrison wouldn't be in such danger had Dexter just given it up, but he's not going to because he has to feed his dark passenger, which will eventually come back and hurt somebody that he cares about. Only time I saw him chill out with the dark passenger situation is during New Blood. I would have to go back and watch, but I think it had something to do with the guilt of losing Deb the way he did. So that's all I got for right now. What did y'all think of the episode? Did anything stand out? Let me know what you think in the comments. Remember to hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you know when I drop new content. Thank you for watching, and until next time, take care.